You're listening to Quorum Radio.
Hey folks, Bill from Quorum Radio. Please do me a big favor and give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and share. Quorum Radio now on with Bill Brown. And in case you're wondering who Bill Brown is, well, he's an eminence Greece regarding the J.D. Tippit murder. He's one of the top two experts on the J.D. Tippit murder in the world. He's a guy that the conspiracy theorists react to just a little bit like, just think Dracula when he sees that silver cross. That's how some of the conspiracy community reacts to Bill Brown. Right, Bill?
Well, yeah, I'd say so.
Just kidding, Bill.
That's quite an introduction there. But I will tell you, I'm not really one of the top two experts on the Tippit murder, because that would imply that I'm on the same level with Dale Myers, who is clearly number one. So
Sure.
we'll say that I'm maybe second, or we'll say number one, besides the fellow who authored With Malice, Lee Harvey Oswald, and the murder of Officer J.D. Tippit. So anyway, I just wanted to clear that up.
Set this up for us, please.
So what happened is, after the assassination in Dealey Plaza, Oswald leaves the school book depository building, and he walks up a number of blocks up Elm Street, and he gets on a bus that's driven by Cecil McWaters, Dallas City bus, and his goal was to take the bus to Oak Cliff, which is where his rooming house was that he was staying in. He was renting a small room. The bus gets stopped in traffic, probably because of the assassination, and so he exits the bus after a few minutes and walks over to the Greyhound station there in downtown Dallas, and he gets in a cab that's driven by William Whaley. And when he gets in the cab, he gives William Whaley an address of 500 North Beckley as the destination. And Oswald's rooming house, in other words, his true destination, was 1026 North Beckley. So for some reason, Oswald gives Whaley an address that's, roughly 5 blocks further into Oak Cliff, from his rooming house. And so they are on their way. They go across the Houston Street Viaduct into Oak Cliff, and they pass the rooming house at 1026 North Beckley. And when they're about the 700 block of North Beckley, so they're about 2 blocks short of the original destination, Oswald informs Whaley that this will do right here. And Whaley pulls over, Oswald pays him, and gets out. So Oswald's got a 3-block walk back up to his rooming house. All right. And he gets to the rooming house, and he goes inside. Erlene Roberts was the housekeeper, and she says that basically Oswald came in around 1 p.m. And around 1 p.m. could be 12:56. It could be 12:50.
One quick thing.
Yes.
I want to jump in. I was going to say, so take us back to so Oswald originally asked to be taken by the taxi driver, Whaley, about 5 blocks past his house in Beckley, his rooming house, and then he decides to get off a couple of blocks beforehand. But let me ask you a question about this. This is important because a lot of people say he wanted to do that, to go past, to make sure that no cops had shown up at his house. But then he gets off 2 blocks beforehand. So when the cab drove past the rooming house, when the cab drives past the rooming house at 1026 North Beckley, Oswald if Oswald's sitting in the cab riding down Beckley, he's probably 30 or 40 feet, maybe 50 feet, I guess, from the front door. Yeah. So in other words, he passed by it, Bill. He passed by it a little bit? They drove straight past, right past the rooming house, exactly. So basically, Oswald, in my opinion, was wanting, when he got in the cab back in downtown by the Greyhound station, and he gave William Whaley the address of 500 North Beckley, it's my opinion that he gave Whaley that address because he wanted the cab to drive past the rooming house, not stop at the rooming house, just in case the authorities would be waiting for him by that point. Now, Oswald they weren't, but he had no way of knowing that. Exactly.
Keep in mind, he already walked a number of blocks up Elm Street. He got on the bus driven by McWaters. He was on McWaters' bus for a number of minutes, got stalled in traffic. Then he had to walk over to the Greyhound station, board a cab, and take the cab over the Houston Street Viaduct into Oak Cliff. So by that time they get over there, he has no way of knowing. Half an hour, basically, that's 25 minutes or whatever has already passed since the assassination. So he doesn't know if the authorities are already going to be waiting for him.
Sure. A quick question, just for clarification: the distance between the Texas School Book Depository and his rooming house on Beckley. How far away is that?
I'm going to guess and say 3 miles.
Okay. Great. So it's not that far. He's in a taxi, and Whaley's an experienced taxi driver. He gets there pretty quickly. So what time do you think he shows up? Roughly at the rooming house.
Well, Erling Roberts, the housekeeper, says basically he came in around 1 o'clock. And again, like I was saying a minute ago, around 1 o'clock could be 12:56. It could be 12:58. It could be 1 o'clock on the nose. It could also be 1:02 or 1:04. There's really no way to know exactly when Oswald walked into the rooming house, but Erling Roberts said it was around 1 o'clock.
Right. And so tell us, so bring us up to the doorway. Oswald's on his way in. Then what happens? So
he goes in and he walks back to his room. It's probably 15 steps at the most. She didn't say anything to him, but she noticed that he came in. He's back in his room. She said he was back there for, and she gave various time descriptions for how long he was back there, whether it be 2 or 3 minutes or 3 or 4 minutes or 4 or 5 minutes. But basically what she says is that he's back there long enough to grab a jacket. And that's exactly how she worded it in her Warren Commission testimony. He was back there for a number of minutes, just long enough to grab a jacket. Okay. So was he back there for 45 seconds? That's very possible. Was he back there for 3 minutes? That's possible as well. But basically she says he was back there long enough to grab a jacket. So then he exits his room, a very small room, walks back towards the front door to leave the rooming house. And she's messing with the television, and she notices him, and she said, "You sure are in a hurry." And he didn't say anything to her. He went on out the door, and she said that he was zipping up a jacket as he was going out the door. And she told a reporter on the afternoon of the assassination that he was wearing a jacket as he went out the door. I think she said it was a short gray coat to the reporter.
Okay, right. And then what happens?
Well, Oswald is next scene moments later. Erling Roberts, again, the housekeeper, she looks out the window and she notices that Oswald is standing at, there's a bus stop outside the rooming house and the one house up closer to the intersection right in front of the house there. So she sees Oswald standing at the bus stop. This was a few moments after he left. And then that's the last time he is seen until we have him walking on 10th Street, 9/10 of a mile away.
Right.
Interestingly enough, the bus stop that he was standing at, it was on the same side of Beckley as the rooming house was. Now, that would be for a bus going north, which would be heading back towards downtown Dallas, as opposed to going south in the direction of 10th and Patton and the Texas Theater. Well, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, but the simple fact that he was standing at a bus stop waiting for a northbound bus, and then he's seen basically 12, 14 minutes later, 9/10 of a mile to the south, that tells me that he didn't really have a clue where he was going or where he wanted to go.
Exactly. He was kind of like, and this is where there's something controversial. I don't think it should be controversial, but when you talk about the JFK case, it is considered controversial. And that is the whole matter of consciousness of guilt, which Del Myers brings in. And if you invoke it, you can understand that Lee Harvey Oswald, and I think it also serves something else. It just basically shoots down the idea of the conspiracy, because he's just one guy on his own, I think.
And the consciousness of guilt, the simple fact that he gets in Whaley's cab at the Greyhound station in downtown Dallas and gives him an address 5 blocks past the rooming house, to me, that's something a guilty person would do.
Sure. Plus, he's a guy who...
Oswald knew damn good and well that his destination was 1026 North Beckley, but he gave the cab driver, William Whaley, an address of 500 North Beckley to drop him off at. I was just saying, an innocent person not on the run from somebody that doesn't do that. They don't give an address to a cab driver 5 blocks past where they're really wanting to go.
Well, based on what you know about Oswald and his relationship with the landlady, Erling Roberts?
Yes.
I know he had a reputation for being kind of talkative and nice to the kids, but was he fairly talkative with his landlady or?
No, he was not. No, he was not. And she said that he pretty much kept to himself. She said that he would occasionally, in the evenings, he would occasionally walk out into the living room, maybe stare at the television for a second. There would be some other boarders would be in the living room sitting on the couch watching television, and she said occasionally Oswald would walk out. Of course, she didn't call him Oswald. She called him Mr. Lee, O.H. Lee, because that's the name that he signed, that he rented the room under. But anyway, she said that occasionally he would come out of his room and stare at the television for, a few minutes and then make his way back to his room. She said he didn't talk to anybody.
Sure. So here we have a day. Tremendous commotion takes place just, 30 minutes prior at the Texas School Book Depository. Doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to see anything on TV regarding news about the event. That's kind of unusual, right?
Well, Oswald was a very political person, as we all know, and it just seems to reason that if he wasn't on the run from something, then I would have stopped at the television with the landlady and try to find out some news on the assassination of the president. I wouldn't have.
Absolutely, and you're right. And there's another fact.
Right.
It's been documented that he thought highly of JFK, and he not only that, at least at one point, not only that, but he had, according to Marina, he had taken out a book about JFK. He had read Profiles in Courage. He read a biography about JFK. And so he had a strong interest in John F. Kennedy.
Absolutely.
It's kind of, it raises questions. Why would he, after he'd been at the Texas School Book Depository, rush in, rush out? Earlene Roberts, I think at that time, she's powering up a TV set in those old days with TV tubes.
Messing with the rabbit ears, trying to get the channel to come in.
Right. You would have thought that he'd want to just patiently wait and say,
absolutely,
something big commotion.
And the same argument can also be made, that the same point can be made for why he left the School Book Depository building in the first place instead of hanging around trying to figure out what had happened.
Absolutely. Yeah. That raises huge questions. But we go back then, he rushes in, maybe he takes 5 minutes. I don't think it would take that long. I mean, they put on a jacket.
Right. Yeah, she said he was there long enough to grab a jacket. Those are her words, a direct quote.
Right. And then how does he leave, Phil?
Did you say how does he leave?
Yeah, I mean, what does she remember about his exit from the rooming house?
Yeah, he goes out the front door and she says, "You sure are in a hurry." So evidently he was walking pretty fast through the house. Okay. And she said that as he went out the front door, he was zipping up a jacket. And she told a reporter on that afternoon that he had left the rooming house wearing a short gray coat.
Right. Okay.
And then she looks out the window, moments later, and sees him standing at a bus stop, which again is for a northbound bus.
So what does that tell you?
Well, I've actually heard some throw out the idea that he was thinking maybe I'm going to go up to Walker's house and finish what I finish what I started back in April. Because he took a shot at General Walker in April of '63. So that's only hypothetical. Who really knows? But one thing's for sure, Earlene Roberts says he was standing at a northbound bus stop, and he's next seen 9/10 of a mile south.
Right. Okay, good. So the 9/10 of a mile. And I understand that you, Dave Ledbetter, and some others did that trek. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we were there back in March of 2020. And myself, Dave didn't walk it with us, but Frank Battleson, myself, F.J. James, Scott Maudsley, Fred Litwin, we walked the route from the bus stop to 10th and Patton, and we got there basically in, some of us got there in about 12 minutes and 20 seconds, and some of us got there in about 12 minutes and 40 seconds. So basically it took us 12 and a half minutes. But that would have us walking straight to the where Tippett's patrol car was parked. It didn't allow for the fact that, in my opinion, the fact that Oswald was actually walking west.
Right. Okay. So then, keep something in mind, not to give your age, but you're a lot older than 24.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So we walked it. I think my time was about exactly 12 minutes and 30 seconds. But the quickest of us, I think, was F.J. James. I think he got there in about 12:20. He was about 10 seconds ahead of me.
Right. Okay.
And, but if you allow Oswald to get to 10th and Patton in 12 and a half minutes, and then somehow or another he walks east on 10th Street for a block or two. I was talking to Dale Myers back in, we were at 10th and Patton. I was there with Dale in September 2019, and Dale told me that there was either, I can't remember if he said it was a Dallas City police car or a Dallas County Sheriff's car, but there was a car sitting near Marsalis and 10th, and perhaps Oswald got spooked by that car. He was walking east on 10th Street. Now, this is just a hypothetical. Nobody's claiming this is a fact. But Oswald could have seen that patrol car and then reversed direction, and now we have him walking west on 10th, which is what the witnesses say he was doing, was walking west on 10th. Now, if he gets to 10th and Patton in 12 minutes and 30 seconds like I did, and then give him a minute or two to walk towards Marsalis and then turn back around and walk back, then it has him walking west on 10th near where Tippett's patrol car was pulled over about 14 and a half to 15 minutes after leaving the rooming house. And if he left the rooming house at 1 o'clock sharp, give him a minute or so to stand at the I mean, you have the shooting occurring at 1:14, 1:15. And here's the important part. Oswald's not milling around on 10th Street. The time that Tippit pulls up and encounters Oswald is split-second timing. He's not going to be there earlier. It's going to be right split-second timing. So in other words, Oswald doesn't have to get there early. He's just got to get there right on the nose, if that makes sense. I'm not really explaining it well.
No, it does. And to keep something in mind, Oswald's a Marine. He hadn't been in the Marine for a while, but he was not, he didn't really balloon up in weight. He was pretty athletic build. I don't remember at his autopsy, what his weight was. Maybe you can fill us in, but he was still in good shape. And for him to walk quickly, even to jog, and they said that, Oswald went everywhere on foot. It's interesting. So it wasn't any mean feat for him to cover that in 8 minutes even. I think that's a mile. Probably 10 minutes. Huh?
I think the autopsy said he weighed like 135 pounds, if I recall correctly, something like that. So he's definitely not overweight, that's for sure.
Sure, and he's able to walk quickly. He walks quickly out of his rooming house.
Right.
Why would he break that stride and all of a sudden, take his sweet time? So anyway,
yeah.
So
what
to bring us
so
up
what we
to,
have is Oswald, we have Oswald walking. I'm sorry about that. We have Oswald walking west on 10th Street. Now there are two fellows named Bill Smith and Jimmy Burt. Now they were out in the front yard at a house at the intersection of 10th and Denver. Now this would be 1 block east of 10th and Patton. They were out in the front yard, and Jimmy Burt, one of the two fellows, said that he noticed a man walking across the street from him, walking along 10th Street from east to west. In other words, walking towards 10th and Patton. Okay.
Yeah.
So this man continues on, west along 10th Street. Jimmy Burt and Bill Smith, they go on about their business in the front yard. And then they notice about 3/4 of a block down, again, this is pretty close to the intersection of 10th and Patton, they notice the approaching patrol car pull over towards the sidewalk and start talking to a man who was walking on the sidewalk. Well, Jimmy Burt says that was the same man that moments earlier he had seen walk right across the street from the front yard that he was in. So if that's true, then you have Oswald walking west on 10th Street, coming from the direction of Denver, walking west towards Patton.